Alright gang, this is Mr. Beige here. Welcome to the first week of Code Club. This week we're going to talk about some of the basics of Scratch and how to use it. You probably want to open up a second browser window and put them side by side with the video, that way you can follow along with what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Have fun and let's start coding! Alright, so the first thing you need to do is go to Scratch's website, which is scratch.mit.edu. And once that loads up, it's going to bring you to this screen. And if you don't want to sign in or anything, you can actually just go to this Create button, and that will let you start coding in Scratch. But if you do that, you won't be able to save any of your work or share it with anybody else. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is, if you don't have an account yet, you need to join Scratch. You can click here, choose a username and choose a password, and it will let you just click through the screens and it will let you sign up. So normally I'm not going to be busting into the videos like this, but this is a point where if you haven't talked to mom or dad about what you're doing yet, you should probably pause the video, go get the permission to sign up for this website called Scratch, make sure they're okay with it, then you can come back, unpause the video, and continue. I already have an account, so I'm going to click sign in here. My username is Matt Beachy. I'm not going to tell you guys my password. And click sign in. I don't want Firefox to remember my password either. And now I get like a little dashboard that shows me, some news and what's happening and stuff like that. If I click over here on my username, I can see all of the projects I've already created. And now if I go to create, I get some more options in here because now I can save my projects and open ones that I've already used before. So that is how you get into Scratch and start using it. So once you're in Scratch, if you wanted to start a new project, you can just click this New Project button. It'll load up the Scratch editor. And it always loads with the default sprite here of the Scratch cat. If you don't want that on your screen, you can just right click on it and click delete. And then you start with a brand new thing. We'll go into more about how to create a new project and stuff like that later. The other thing is if you already have projects that you have created previously, you can go in and look at any of them, and I'll show you the one that's the intro for the movie that you're watching right now. And you click on it, it'll load the project up, and once that happens, you can just start editing it. You need to click see inside, and then you can just start editing it however you would like. Once you're in a project, Scratch will save it occasionally. I think it's like every 5 minutes or something like that, it automatically saves. But if you just made a big change and you want to save it manually, you can go to the File menu and you can click Save Now, and it will force it to save. That way you don't accidentally lose anything if your browser window closes or crashes or something goofy like that. So once you're in a Scratch project, there's some basics you guys probably need to know, terminology and stuff like that. So this white background here, that's called the backdrop stage canvas. It's got a couple different words you'll see used if you look at different projects. But basically it's the background where you put everything you want to see. And you can change it. It doesn't have to be white. It can be different colors. It can be a picture, whatever. The backdrop can also contain, when you're editing it, it can contain code, and that's code that either directly affects the backdrop or affects everything going on with your project. We'll go more into that later. The other thing, if you notice right here, you see little X and Y coordinates, and that's where something is on the backdrop. So if you watch when I drag the Scratch cat around, it changes those coordinates as I move it. And those coordinates are something that you can program. So if you want to move the Scratch cat from here to here, you can change those X and Y coordinates using a program to make it move like that. Scratch cat is called a sprite, and it's not the soda sprite. It's basically the picture of what you want to program. So we want this cat to move across the screen. The cat is our sprite. Sprites can contain code, so you can say, I want this cat to turn around, or I want this cat to jump, or something, or make a meow sound. Anything you want it to do, you can program it to do using scripts. The other thing you can do with backdrops and with sprites is you can have what are called costumes, or actually a stage has a backdrop, a sprite has a costume. So in here, if you go to backdrops, you can have multiple pictures, so you can change it from, if you want to change from sunrise to a sunset, you can have the multiple pictures that make up those things and use a program to change them. Or if you want the cat to go from here you kind of see looks like it's running with the two sprites, the two costumes that the sprite has, you can use a script to change the costume and make it look like it's running. So once you get into talk about scripting, these things are called blocks. Everything you see in here is a block, and you use those to program your code. And this is what tells a sprite or a backdrop or background what to do. And you group them together in what's called a script. So, just a simple one here, we can do, when somebody clicks start, we can go to the looks one, and we can say switch costume to costume 2, and then wait a second, and then switch costume back to costume 1. So this is a real simple program. It doesn't really do a whole lot. But if you watch, his legs skip. Nothing very important, but there it goes. So if you looked, I had to switch between a couple different of these colors, and these are called command groups. And if you look, there's ones for motion, so you can say move 10 steps or turn, or all kinds of things that affect the motions of a script. I'm sorry, of a sprite. In the looks, you can do things like make it say hello, or show it, or hide it, or change the costume, which is the ones I added here. You can affect the sounds of a sprite. And like for this one, I can make it say meow, but you can make it say whatever you want. You can, just real quick looking at sounds, you can record a new sound or import sounds from the Scratch library. Or even if you have sounds on your desktop you wanted to upload, you could upload them and use those. The pen lets you draw on the screen. We'll talk about that in a couple sessions from now. Data is how you use variables and lists, and we'll talk about those later. Events are, the important one is when green clicked, because that means when somebody clicks go on your program, this is what's going to happen. But there's other events too, like when somebody presses the space bar, or when somebody clicks on your sprite. Those are also events that can happen. We'll talk more about that kind of stuff later. Control is, I use the basic wait command here, and it just says make my program wait a minute. But there's other ones such as, repeating or testing for whether something happened, and those are all things we'll talk about later. Sensing does things like, if their sprite is touching the mouse pointer, or if it's touching a certain color, you can do cool things where you ask for information from a user and then use that information to do something, or testing how loud the sound is. There's a lot of different things you can do with these, and we'll go into all these a lot later. Operators are a more advanced thing we'll talk about a couple sessions from now. And then more blocks is, we won't get into this session, maybe next time. But basically they let you add your own blocks that do special things. So once you know how to start up a Scratch project, you know some of the basics, one of the things you want to do is add some new sprites. And these buttons here are what let you do that. You can click this new sprite button to choose one from a library. So for example, Scratch provides me a library that has a bow tie in it. So I want to add a bow tie to my cat. I double click on it, and I put the bow tie on. I can also do where I can paint my own. So, let's say I want to add a rectangle with a circle inside of it. Now I have that, and you can see it here, and you can do anything. Say I want to duplicate it. I can click that duplicate button, click on my thing, and now I have two of those, and I can offset them a little bit. Looks weird, but whatever. Be creative. You can also upload ones from your computer. I don't really have a whole lot of pictures on my computer, but this lets you upload it. You can use it like any other sprite then. And the same thing with the camera button. You can click on that and take a picture, and that will add it to your sprite library as well. So for example, if you want to take a picture of your face and put that in there, if your computer has a camera, you can do that. And the same thing goes for backdrops. They supply you a library. So hey, I want the cat to be in a baseball field. I can double click that, give it a second. It takes a minute to put the sprite in there, and now the cat's in a baseball field. Or I can draw my own. I can upload one, I can take a picture. So the same type of stuff you can do there, you can do with sprites, you can do with backdrops. So when you're looking at a sprite, you can see this little I button right above it in the corner here. If you click on that, that lets you see a little bit more information about the sprite. Like you can rename it. So, I want this to be called cat instead of sprite 1. You can see its X and Y position. You can see its direction. Some of this you can also change it. So for example, if I want to change it so it's upside down, I can take this little dragger and put it upside down. You can change stuff like rotation style, which we'll talk about at a later time. And some other options like whether it's shown or not by default. So if you want everything to be turned off by default, you can have that, and it makes some parts of your programming easier. We'll talk about that later. And then when you're done making your changes, you click the little blue arrow up here, and that takes you back where you can see all your sprites. Alright, the next thing I wanted to show you is just a real quick sample program, and this is the intro to this video that we're watching. And let me play it again for you real quick just so you can see what it does again. It types all the letters on the screen. Code Club slides in from the side. With Mr. Beachy pixelates in. And basically the way the letters work to draw themselves is the A is kind of a special case because it's the first one. So when go is clicked, it unhides itself, it plays a sound, waits, and then broadcasts, hey, I'm done. The R and all the subsequent letters, when the button is clicked, they just hide themselves. They wait for the previous letter to say, I'm done, before they show themselves, play their sound, and then broadcast, I'm done. So R, shows itself, plays the sound, broadcasts that it's done. D shows itself, plays a sound, broadcasts that it's done, and it goes all the way through to the L, which it broadcasts that it's done, but it also broadcasts that the whole of Ardmore School is done being drawn. And that lets Code Club know that it can now show itself. So when the green arrow is clicked for Code Club, what it does is it hides itself and goes all the way over to the right-hand side of the screen here. When it finds out that Ardmore School has been drawn, it glides in from the right-hand side here all the way back to the center like this. And then it broadcasts that it's done. And that lets the With Mr. Beachy part know that it can come on. And what this one does is what's called pixelating effect. And so when the green button is clicked to say go, it pixelates itself, which makes it look real blurry. And then when it receives that it can make itself shown, it unpixelates itself to make itself clear. So you can watch that part of the video again to see what it does, but it's kind of a cool effect. You can use that on sprites. So there's a lot of code in each of the letters and in each of the words that let them show themselves. So it hides and it changes the pixelate. This one has a repeat in it, which we're not going to talk about till the next session. This project is shared out so you can kind of see all the code that's going on with it and get an idea for how a real simple but real program works. So one thing you need to know is when you're coding, sometimes you put some code in there that you didn't like and you need to get rid of it. For example, I have two when start blocks on here and I only need one on this sprite. So what you can do, you just take it and you drag it back over to the commands here and it'll go away. Another interesting thing is sometimes you need to remove code that's in the middle of another code. For example, I have two repeats on here and I only want one. And for whatever reason, I want this bottom one. You can take it and drag it off somewhere else and just leave it sitting there. And then take the one you don't want, drag it over to the commands, and it'll get rid of it. And then put this one back in place. Another cool thing you can do, say I want this whole group of code to be saved. You can take it. I got to scroll down a little bit here. You have this thing called a backpack. Oops, sorry about that. You have this little thing called a backpack. And what you can do there is you can drag your code down into the backpack. And it'll leave it up on your thing. But then what that lets you do, if you want to reuse the same code over and over again, you can just keep dragging it on here. If I create a new sprite, let's just do a simple one here. We'll add Alex as a sprite. So now I'm on Alex's code, and you see there's no code in my scripts window, but my stuff in the backpack is still there, and I can add the exact same code to Alex. So that's a very powerful way of being able to reuse your code, is this backpack window where you can, if you have something you want to reuse, you just take it, pull it down here, and use it again. And that's something that's very powerful when you're programming, is being able to reuse your code without having to re-put it all in there by manually. So there's a couple of buttons up here at the top that you should probably know about. They're grow, shrink, delete, and duplicate. And what they do is, grow does exactly what you think. You select it, click on your sprite, hey, your sprite grows. Click on shrink, your sprite shrinks. Easy enough. Delete's also pretty easy. You click on your sprite goes away. Duplicate is a little interesting. This is doing what's called a clone of your sprite. So it's going to take everything about your clone and make an exact copy of it. So if you look, now there's 2 of them. If I do it again, you can kind of see down in the sprites window here, it put another one down there. But because it's exactly the same, it was in the same spot. The other cool thing about creating clones is if you make a change to a clone, it doesn't affect the original one. So now if you look, I'm on, there's Alex, Alex2, and Alex3 here. I'm on Alex3. If I add some code, and let's do something crazy. Let's rotate Alex a little bit there. So Alex3 is rotated and has some extra code in her. But if I look at Alex2, that extra code went away. If I look at Alex1, that extra code is also not there. It only exists in Alex3. Same thing applies for your, the one that was your original one that's not a clone. If I add, some code to Alex, and then look at Alex2 or Alex3, that code isn't there. Cloning is a powerful thing we'll talk more about later, but it's something where if you want to easily create a bunch of something, you can use that clone tool to create a bunch of them. So this topic's a little more advanced. We're going to talk about it more later in the year, but you really need to know about variables to be able to do anything really cool with a computer program. So I'm going to show you how it works right now. And basically what a variable is it's a part of the computer that stores data for you. So for example, I'm going to have the cat ask you for 2 numbers and multiply them together. So I'm going to make 2 variables. I'll call them x and y because I'm super creative like that. And now I'm going to click on the cat. I'm going to have him, when this is click, sensing, I'm going to have him say, ask what is x, and wait. And then what I'm going to do is I can get the set operation for a variable and set x to what the answer of your question was. So the cat's going to say what is x, you're going to type an answer in, and we're going to set the variable x to that answer. Then what we're going to do is have the cat ask, what is y? Is y. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. We'll go back here. I'll say set y to your answer. Then the last thing we're going to do is set another variable. We'll call it result. And what the result is going to do is store the operation of multiplying x times y. So set result equal to, and you see right here we have a times operator, so we can do that. And then we go back to our data, and we can pull in the x, and we can pull in the y. So now we have a variable called result that has x times y in it. And we can make the cat say that. So say, we're going to wipe out where it says hello there. So it says say hello. We're going to say result for 2 seconds. So this is a real simple way to use variables. There's a lot more powerful ways to do it. But you can see what we do. We get a number for x and we store it in the x variable. We get a number for y, we store it in the y variable. We multiply x times y, and we store that in the result variable, and then we display the result. So let's see what happens, make sure it actually works how we wanted it to. What is x? 3. What is y? 4. 3 times 4 is 12. The cat tells us 12. So now you can kind of see where that is. Like I said, variables are very powerful. We're going to go into them a lot more later in the year, but This is a real simple way you'll start seeing how you can use them more later. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is one of the coolest things about Scratch is that anything you create, you can share with anybody else in the world. And when you share it with them, they can see all the scripts and all the costumes and all the sounds and all the backdrops, everything you've created to make your program. And anything that anybody else shares, you can do what's called remixing and play with that yourself. So to share it, it's pretty simple. You just click the share button. And now it's available. You can do things like add instructions or add notes and credits if you want to, or tags, but you don't have to do anything like that. It's all available already. And it's that simple. Now anybody can search, if you search for my name, Matt Bache, you'll be able to see this Ardmore Code Club project as something that I've shared. The other cool thing though is I'm just going to go explore. So this guy named CB created a project called Oh Hi. I can go in and I can see his project. If I click see inside, it's going to load up for me. Okay, that's enough there. But if you look here, there's this button called Remix. And if I click that, what that's going to do is save a copy of his Oh Hi project into my profile. Now, any changes I make to it are exclusive to me. They don't affect his thing, his project. And I can click on it and make changes to it. And eventually, I can share this back to the world once I've made my changes to it. If you do something like that, though, if you share a project that you've remixed from somebody else, you should really use those sharing fields to make sure that people know, hey, I got this from a person named CB. I didn't do the original work to create this. Okay, so that's it for week 1. Hope you enjoyed it. Go do some coding on your own, have some fun, be creative, and we'll see you next week.